What happens when a corporate executive walks out of a meeting and decides to reinvent the entire construction industry?
And I threw an adult tanty internally. I wasn't noisy about it. I couldn't do it anymore. And I excused myself from the meeting and I said to my business partner at the time, I'm out.
10 years ago, Paul left his comfortable corporate job. Today, he's revolutionizing how the building industry approaches design collaboration.
Our industry doesn't work without collaboration. We can all be very egocentric in terms of what it is we do in our little silo.
You got to come on the podcast, just break down more of that discussion so more people can hear that. So big thank you for jumping on, and just, again, context for those who are listening and watching. But maybe to jump in, can you give us a background to Earthborne By Design? What do you guys do? And maybe a bit of a backstory. As you know, we're big on story. Bit of a backstory as to how that all came to be.
Yeah, the backstory is always a fascinating one because I 10 years ago last week, 10th anniversary of Earthborne By Design. 10 years ago, I was in a very comfortable kind of corporate position, and it was a franchise system originally, and it kind of diluted over the years. Okay. But anyway, I remember the day clearly. It was a Friday. It was the 25th of January, and that was 2 weeks ago. 25th of January, and I was in a meeting for a meeting to have a meeting of the meeting and looking at a spreadsheet.
That sounds corporate.
Looking at a spreadsheet and dissecting numbers, and my creative soul was kind of just screaming and smacking me on the back of the head and saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I threw an adult tanty internally. I wasn't noisy about it, but I couldn't do it anymore. And I excused myself from the meeting and I said to my business partner at the time, I'm out. And it was that. There was no negotiation. There was no buyout. There was no nothing. Yeah. I'd lost my marbles, and it was what I call my reinvention crisis. Okay. And I had no idea what I was going to do. But in that moment, I just knew
it wasn't that.
I couldn't do that anymore.
What was that? What was that previous industry?
It was kind of still related to design and the building industry.
Okay.
But when I started that business, 12 years before, we were going down the sustainability path, which was way too early for the Australian market at the time, and it just didn't take off. And it's probably still way too early, the conversation, but that's another conversation, I guess. So I think, so walking out on that day, I had no idea what the next move would be. And I'd done a interior design diploma, which had kind of been put in a drawer somewhere. And I'd never, gone down that path. And instinctively, I had an understanding. And
what do you think drew you towards design?
Drew me towards design?
Yeah.
JP, being South African, you'll understand the term Oma. Now, Oma was a huge influence in my life. I spent a lot of time with her on the farm.
Yeah.
School holidays. She was the consummate homemaker, and her gardens were always perfect. And that kind of referencing started early, and I think the seed was probably planted.
Yeah.
I didn't know for sure that that's the path, and it certainly wasn't the path because I did a BCom. I did a BCommerce degree.
Okay.
I can't count, but I did a commerce degree.
Yeah.
And I just think that the seed was probably planted way back then. I just intrinsically liked
What do you think
spaces.
it was about your grandmother or your Oma that
I think it
appealed
was
to you, or that influenced you? Or?
Well, I think what influenced me most was her capacity for creating a beautiful space.
Yeah, right.
And for making people welcome, and for comfort, and for beauty.
Omas have an amazing ability to do that.
Yeah. And she just was that. So I think that influenced certainly early on. Later on in life, I had an innate understanding of spaces, and I just always looked at spaces as solutions, not necessarily just from an aesthetic point of view, but certainly from a solution. How can we fix the space?
Yeah,
is how my mind works.
Yeah.
Before I get to the pretty, I get to the pretty quite quickly because I can see a space. I'm one of those people. What was that movie? I said, "Do you see dead people?" I see pretty spaces. Same thing. So I think that's where the influence is. Definitely early on with my OMA.
Okay, and then fast day to present. Your
so
firm, what do you guys
26th of January, I was sitting outside early morning, 4:30, sun was coming up, had a what have I done moment.
Yeah.
And the sun was kind of coming through the treetops, and it had rained the night before, and there was kind of dew on the grass. And this name just popped into my head. It was Earthborne. And I just thought, okay, so what's this?
Yeah.
And the way I work, I'm quite, I think I'm quite impulsive by nature. So in that moment, I took where it was going, and I just thought, well, I'm going to give this a try.
Yeah.
So what Earthborne by Design does is we specialize in interiors. The market has kind of pitched us in a renovation space, which is great because, again, that plays to my mindset of solutions.
Absolutely.
So a broad range of service. When I started out, you kind of want to be everything to everybody, and because you have to. So you kind of say yes to everything. I still do, but on a different level. I think the important thing then was for me to try and understand where I would fit into this space because I had no experience. Zip.
Yeah.
I had no industry experience in this space.
Yeah.
I had a reference to the building industry, which was useful. But it evolved pretty quickly.
Okay.
From my first client who paid me $500, and I thought I'd made it, to where we're at now. So it's expanded quite rapidly.
Fantastic.
It's been a baptism of fire because you learn on the run all the time. And our industry evolves quicker than any other industry other than
tech.
Tech evolves a lot quicker, but in terms of products and services and all of those things, I think our industry is one of those industries that just you don't keep up, So
just with the
constant change, building codes, everything.
There's so many elements. A big reason why I also wanted to get you on here is because you and I really agreed on there's definitely challenges in that pre-construction phase, but therefore, through the right lenses, there's also plenty of opportunity if you can provide a solution in that space. Yeah. This is my opinion. I'm still building my thesis around it, but I think there's someone who's willing to take control of that pre-construction phase to help with the design of the building. So now architect or designer, those resources, all the choices, the selections, the interior design, the feeling of the space, and then obviously someone to build it. If those three elements can work really well together and someone who's willing to take control or guide that is going to be able to control the outcome and get a better outcome for the client. And you and I really agreed on just the importance of collaboration and how important that is.
I think that's the whole point is our industry doesn't work without collaboration. We can all be very egocentric in terms of what it is we do in our little silo and go, well, I'm the designer, so I need the credit. And then the builder goes, well, I need the credit because I actually built it. And everybody in between, So I think ego is not always a bad thing, but when it needs a solution for a client, at the end of the day, there's actually no space for ego. The end result is a result of what we do together, not in our little silos. So it is an interesting space, and still I find getting better. Mm-hmm. I think I'm in a great advantage though, because I'm male. Mm-hmm. So our industry is very, very female orientated in terms of interior designers. If you were to look at a split between male and female, it's probably 80-20. So it's, but then that gets broken down into all kinds of other categories as well, interior decorators, interior stylists. Right. And so the interior space is a big space. Yeah. But in terms of designers, I think the split is still quite skewed towards women. Right. And they have a harder time in the industry because, a typical building site is more interested in, what
it's quite male
what
dominant.
She looks like.
Yeah, right.
And why is she wearing those shoes and why has she got a handbag? And rather than actually validating the person for the skill set. Mm-hmm. So I am at an advantage and I recognize that.
Okay.
And the way I'm dressed today is the way I pitch to work. It's the way I generally pitch to clients. I'm not trying to be anything else. Yeah. So I think all of that matters as well because there's an expectation, I think, a lot of the time, if we look at what the media does.
Yeah, I was going to be honest. I was expecting a differently dressed with some sort of velvet jacket or something.
Yeah, it's not happening. So I think the important thing here is the book and the cover, the expectation of what that looks like, but more importantly, recognizing a skill set.
Yeah.
And we have a skill set to bring to the table, and the builder has a skill set to deliver on the idea. And together, that is the solution. So collaboration's key. It doesn't work without it.
Yeah. We recorded a podcast earlier this week on applying force versus removing friction.
Okay.
And you think, if you're working towards a goal, yes, sometimes it does require more effort or more energy input. But sometimes it's just, if you remove the friction, and that idea of if we could just get this thing greased really well and wheels turning, the collaboration working, it would just move so much easier, smoother.
Yeah, the best result comes from that collaboration. And I've seen it with projects that I've been involved with where it hasn't been collaborative. And then on the other hand, where the collaboration is just a dream, it's a dream project.
I was going to ask you, where did, for collaboration and the perspective that you have on it, I'm going to be diving more into it with you, where did you first see that on a project where you thought, man, collaboration is just, it's like number one?
I think oftentimes, the design on paper is one thing, but the execution on a building site is a completely different thing. And I think where I first saw that work best was early on. My very first big project, and that's a quick side story on that one. So the client was one of those yes moments because the client called and said, I just need a color consult. And I thought, okay, well, we can pick some colors.
Classic example of a client saying, this is all I need.
This is all I need. And it was a job at Indooroopilly. And I don't know if it was brave or stupid, but I walked in and I said, no amount of paint's going to fix this. And everybody
brazen.
laughed, but I thought it was kind of brazen.
Yeah.
And that was the very first big project that I worked on. And it was from essentially a color consult turned into a $1.2 million renovation. So, you cannot just assume that the information that you're getting initially from a client is that.
That's...
But the key on that particular project was the original plans for that house had a fridge enclosure. It was all brick internally, exposed brick, and I wanted the fridge enclosure to go, and on the original plans, it didn't show as a structural element.
Okay.
So just smash it out. Well, on the day, it became quite apparent that there was a major structural element to it. So it had to stay, and we then utilised that space, redesigned it, but turned what was going to get in the way into something useful. And we could only have done that on site on the day. So it wasn't kind of, let's figure this out on paper. Yes, the paper had to come, but it was a matter of, in that moment, you just realize that, things aren't always what they seem to be, particularly on site. It's
and no doubt it would be an example where you had to collaborate with those on site.
Yeah.
To make that happen and to see what's
available. That was the builder and the engineer.
Yeah.
Us all standing and looking at this thing going, what are we going to do with it? And a solution, was...
Yeah, solution oriented is massive as opposed to one person pointing and blaming, and that's not going to get anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
And that was the moment when I realised, and I stuck with that builder. He was a difficult man, Scottish man. But I stuck with him because I'm loyal to trades, and because it's all about those relationships. Because the collaboration also comes because of relationships. It doesn't just happen. So relationships are important in collaboration. And Will was a difficult man to work with, and I just stuck it out because he taught me so much. But he wasn't naturally a collaborator. But by the end of when he decided to exit construction and become a foreman, by the end of it, he was so much more open to the collaborative approach. He was happy to throw the plans on the floor and draw on them together. So it's about building that rapport and that relationship as well. It doesn't happen no relationship, happens collaboratively instantly. Yes, we might resonate, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So relationships matter.
When we look at the the design process, if we start going through that, how do you go about, or what do you see, or maybe the question would be, how do you change a client's perspective to view design as an investment versus a cost? And how do you help them understand the value that sits there?
I think the most obvious question, but one that's not asked enough, is why. Why are you doing this? Why do you believe you need this change? Why have you set this budget? All of those things lead to a very different conversation than just going with an open-ended conversation. So if you press on the why, you generally get a lot more answers from people than just assuming that the information that they've provided to that point is going to be enough.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because there was an architect I spoke to last year sometime, someone who I know, and he was describing that idea of, people might say that, this is what I want, this is what I want. But when you actually listen to them and ask questions, the why, understand how they live, all that, then it's like, this is what you need.
Yeah.
And then when you show it to them, it's like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the understanding of a client's brief often is not necessarily what they are telling you at the initial stage. The whole lifestyle question is an important one. The motivation for the need for changing. Those conversations they're crucial. And I often talk about, the analogy of Mrs. Smith has bought a sofa for a space she hasn't got yet. So the focus is the sofa, and that's the starting point. So
as in, like, some clients come to you like that, going, "Oh, this amazing sofa, I want it in my lounge.
Yeah,
let's now design the lounge."
Yeah. But that's the reality.
Yeah,
because I've fallen in love with this
that lounge
element
that I saw on Instagram, and
I need that to be in my life for whatever reason. The old butler's pantry conversation is a good one, because a lot of people will say to you, yes, I want a butler's pantry. But when you kind of nut it down and look at space and you understand that neither is really that important, what is it that they really want? They want set down space and storage. So that's the interesting evolution of a conversation.
Yeah, that's a good example there of that.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, wow. And so what stage, if we look at a normal timeline, when does someone usually get in touch with you? And when is ideal, I guess, as well? It's important to understand.
I think when they've made a decision that the space that they are in or want to have no longer works, or they don't know how to move on a space that will be a future home. And oftentimes I think what happens is builders get inundated with calls from a person who doesn't understand necessarily process and why, getting the recipe right to give to the baker, the builder, to actually build and bake is important. You can't skip this part of it, is otherwise you're just going to go around in circles and talk about, what if. Whereas a good set of design documentation sets the tone. It creates clarity, not just for the client, but also for the builder. So I think those things are important. So when is it good for them to call? When the idea pops into their mind.
Okay. And
then the dream phase starts. And, that dream phase can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years. So, it really just depends on the individual and where they're at in terms of the commitment of moving forward.
Okay. And do you have clients come to you and then you help them sort of project manage from understanding their space, what they need, and then what is going to be done to that space?
Yeah. So I think the simplest way to describe the process for us, and similarly you'll find the industry works similarly around these steps, because they're important to kind of qualify each round of work that it is ready to go to the next stage. So it really starts with discovery. This is where you're kind of drawing all the information about what is it, what are we building, what are we designing, what are you needing. So it's the what stage and the dream phase, which then turns into the next stage would be the concept stage, where you start doing a bit of pretty picturing and things that kind of resonate because of the whys that you've had answered. And then development is more detail. This is when we start throwing up walls and doing elevations and making the space work better. And step back in the concept design phase, you're playing with spatial planning as well, so that people can kind of get a sense of how they're going to move through their new home or their renovated home. Design development, lots of detail, all the selections.
If we just stay there for a bit in the selections, that's one area where I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this. That's one area, and I think we may have discussed it on the phone, that there's a big gap. You've got these architects and building designers that will say, I'll design this, but then I'm not going to help you. You're not paying me, and I don't have the time to help you make the choice of that tab there, that tab. Maybe on super high-end, super spec'd out stuff, maybe, if you've got an in-house team that helps them with that. And the builders doesn't have the time to walk around, hold their hand, take them to shops, make choices. And so then there's this gap where the client's left a rope that they don't even know how long it is. Some people can't manage the time well, and so they're not meeting deadlines in selections.
Yeah.
Or
they're overwhelmed.
Yeah,
there's too much choice.
Totally. Or they're choosing stuff and then they get to the end and they go, oh, it's way overpriced.
It's not going to work. And,
that too.
So looking at stuff in isolation. So that's an interesting conversation in itself because, referencing back to the sofa conversation, it's about looking at something in isolation rather than cohesively and how it's all going to work together.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily consider that. And you've got to dissect that information. But going back to the selections process. So what we tend to do, and it's not, again, industry do different things, but what we tend to do is try and bring all the solutions to a table so that we're not sending someone out blind to go and make those choices. And what you're then doing is you're creating that story in front of them. And it's a tangible, you're getting all the samples, you're playing with the plans, everything is there for them to touch and feel, and they feel like in that moment that they're buying into the dream. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are going to be changes. Of course they are. And that happens, frequently. But when you start off with a base, you know where to go with that because you're able to, from the concept stage and even from discovery stage, you've been able to get from them what it is that they like and don't like.
When you say base, what's an example of that? What is the base looking?
Tiles, flooring, finishes in terms of what's the colour of the tap.
Paint colour.
What's the paint colour?
Carpets.
What are the finishes, stone finishes for bench tops?
Yeah.
So those kind of things, so you're really getting them involved at that level. And, people are time poor. They just don't have the time to run around to umpteen shops and showrooms to go and make those selections. And they, again, when you're doing it in isolation, you're missing crucial parts of pulling the whole thing together.
That whole isolation thing is definitely a challenge that I would say my wife and I have when it comes to choosing things.
Yeah.
It's like, that lamp looks good.
Yeah.
And so I keep saying at some stage I think we should get someone like you in. Just give us a plan so that when we can't do everything now, but a plan to follow over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing as well because you do get clients who want to stage projects. Okay. I generally advise them not to do it because they're going to hate us eventually because we stay in their lives for far too long.
Yeah.
They live in a perpetual renovation.
Okay.
So those kind of things I do advise people against.
Okay.
But yes, to get an idea of a plan is a good thing. So if you want to stage a renovation, get the whole plan done, because whatever you're going to do here is going to impact at the back of the house. So make sure that even when you are staging, that it all makes sense on one plan. And yes, it might change down the track, but the point is that there's a good starting point. Yeah.
What does it look like on a project when there's a builder and let's say a building designer involved and you're involved as well? Talk me through that because that's what I think a lot of our builders, a lot of them are, custom residential home builders.
Yep.
Some of them do design construct, whether it be outsource or in-house. Some just do, building designs that come to them. But I still feel there's a big opportunity there for what you're offering, where they can't cover it and it's coming to them not ready.
I think a current example of that is a massive project that we're working on at Burbank. It's still in concept stage. But there's a building designer involved because there are a lot of structural elements. Okay. And as an interior designer, we might understand these things, but we are not able to make any decisions based on structure. So from an interior designer's point of view, what we're trying to do at a spatial level is show intent. Okay. This is what we're hoping to achieve. And then a building designer or an architect's going to say to us, yes, it can be achieved. If we were, early on in the stage, but if a building designer is involved first, and again, even that collaboration is important because I've had really good relationships with building designers where the collaboration actually ultimately turns into a good result because it's just,
There's respect for each other's ideas.
There's respect for
solutions.
each other's ideas and skill set. And a space evolves because of that. Typically a building designer / architect is very focused on how that structure works, not necessarily on the spatial design and how it works for the clients. Okay. And I know architects and building designers watching this are going to go, what are you talking about? But it is about, again, I'll go back to the couch. Yeah. An architect and a building designer is not listening to that information.
Yeah.
We are, because they're attached to that.
Absolutely.
So if we can transfer that information, it becomes an integral part of creating a solution for a client.
I find it fascinating that in most discussions, it's always, maybe it's just the seat that we're sitting in.
Yeah.
It's always builder, designer being the building designer, an architect. But at the end of the day, the client's living in the space. What does that space feel like? And there's just sometimes, I feel, not enough attention maybe given to that. And then because that's not given enough attention, then there's friction points coming up.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy with the builder because he didn't do this right, or the designer...
Or he didn't listen.
Didn't listen. The designer didn't design it right. It's not given the feel I want. But maybe if we go look at what are some of the common friction points that you're finding? I know some of the stuff we previously discussed was just client changes, PC allowances, variations. Talk me through some of those challenges that you see popping up and how you found just good solutions around that.
I think friction generally happens when not enough questions have been asked to get the answer from the client as to what it is they actually want. Builders are getting better.
I was going to say, watch what you say here, because we have a lot of... No, I'm joking.
Builders are getting a lot better at not fixating on PC allowances.
Okay.
Because they understand the clients don't really understand that either.
Right.
A PC allowance for a client, but you've got a toilet in there for me. There's a toilet, but I want a smart toilet, so that it's a toilet. So you've got to be very careful in terms of being restrictive, because what a PC allowance does, it says I'm only giving you a certain amount of money
to allocate
towards this.
Yeah.
But more often than not, the client has a very different idea of what it is that they really want.
Help my understanding. Why would you put a PC sum in there as opposed to getting the decision, getting the final item spec'd?
I think, and that's why I'm saying it's getting a lot better.
Okay.
In the days way back when we post-COVID, when there was still things like fixed price contracts, they were easy to get across the line.
Okay.
And then the variation trap comes, and variations are a big friction point because clients don't necessarily understand why it's a variation.
Right. Because in their minds, I said toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you allowed for a toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went out and chose my toilet.
We didn't discuss which one.
Yes.
But there's a toilet in there.
Okay.
So you've got to be very careful with that kind of language with people who generally don't understand what that all means. So from our process perspective, we're doing all those selections up front. So by the time a builder gets our schedule, he doesn't have to think about putting in a PC allowance. He's got what he needs to go and buy.
It's all spec'd out. That'd be a huge help.
So it's a huge help for them, and it takes away a big friction point, because I think one of the biggest ones is absolutely variations.
Okay.
And it's understandable because it changes scope, it changes decisions that made, it delays things.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely I understand why variations happen and why they need to be charged, but clients don't always understand it.
Yeah, I can imagine from a client's perspective, it's
I'm spending
you're the builder.
$750,000.
Why didn't you tell me that?
Yeah.
You should cover that if you forgot to tell me. Yeah, man, that's okay. Yeah. So it's all about setting just clear expectations.
Yeah. So if you can avoid that friction point of a variation trap by having a clear shopping list, and then it's our job, certainly from a designer's point of view, managing the design direction. So you used a word earlier that we cannot project manage.
Okay.
Interior designers in Australia are not licensed.
Okay.
We're not required to be licensed. There is murmuring of change in our industry, but it's probably years away before that actually happens.
So if a client comes to you first, you'll work with them to get everything spec'd out.
Yeah.
And then a builder can take that.
Exactly.
And if a designer needs to come in.
So what we can do is we can manage design direction, but it's all in the language as well. So we can facilitate a project, but we can't project manage. Yeah. So facilitation, we can do project facilitation, but we can't project manage.
Okay.
So the QBCC, for example, years and years ago, there was a category for interior designers, but they didn't know what to do with us, so they just canned it.
Right, okay.
So now we're getting back to this point where, if you think about what's happened in the industry and how that's evolving, there's always someone that needs to be blamed for something. We live in a litigious society, so everyone wants to kind of be free of blame. But the point is that if I'm specifying something, it needs to be fit for purpose. So what happens then? Does the builder have to assume the responsibility because I've selected something? So it becomes quite grey, if you don't understand the importance of actually selecting something that is fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Or understanding that, that bathroom needs X amount of space for a toilet, and those kind of things that are just, you can't just assume that because you're doing the pretty stuff that it doesn't have to work, and then you absolved of the responsibility.
Yeah, I want to come back to that because that's a very important part. But help me understand, with the projects you work on, what percentage of your projects is there a builder involved?
All of them.
All of them. Okay. What percentage of your projects?
Oh, actually, no. There would be not necessarily a builder involved, but there'll be some trades.
Okay.
So let's qualify. So if it's a kitchen renovation, a cabinet maker can take care of a number of the trades that need to be involved. It doesn't necessarily have to be a builder. So from the interior decorate point of view, never a builder. But in terms of trades on our projects, almost always.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often are you ever tasked with going out and helping a client select a builder or select a building designer? Or
so more and more we're finding the clients are coming to us for a total solution.
Okay.
And then we can introduce them to a builder. Hence, again, if we go back to the collaborative conversation and the importance of relationships, is to be able to kind of go, pitch a particular client with a particular builder because it will work. So you're managing people and personalities as well as a build, because not all builders will be a right fit for a certain client. So all of that is, it's a juggle. So it's kind of, it's almost like being a conductor of an orchestra that you can't, you've got all of these moving parts you've got to think about. I really enjoy those projects where it's everyone gets involved where the client is needing a solution. I probably struggle the most with clients that need validation of choices.
Interesting you mention that, because that's where, again, this is the thesis that I'm building in my head. That is where I've always thought clients really do need that. And, if they can get validation that, this is the right decision, this will fit, you don't have to worry about that. Because taking a few steps back, a big fear of a client is, and this can sometimes cause them not even to reach out to you or not even reach out to a builder because they're scared of making a wrong decision. I'm scared I go down this path and then I have to commit and it's not actually what I want.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to invest $1 million in this project and I'm not going to like it. And so I've always thought if there can be some assistance in helping them validate their decisions, help them make confident decisions pre-construction, those decisions can be made faster and less likely you're going to have variations.
I think there are two conversations there. So when I talk about validation clients, they're the ones that already have the idea sorted in their head, and they just want you to approve
I see,
a decision. Whereas the validation process of a client that is needing direction is a very different one.
Okay.
Because that is a two-way conversation. That is a let's solve this together.
Whereas the first one is, I have a great idea. I just need you to tell me it's a great idea.
You just need to go and tell me it's a great idea and go and execute it.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at those ones.
I don't think most people are not good.
So, and it's great that you have that kind of confidence that you've made the decision, you know what you want, but then you don't need someone like me because inevitably it'll turn into a conflict situation. Whereas people who are needing direction and wanting to work with us, it's a lot more rewarding for both parties.
Talk me through what I wanted to come back to earlier, and just funny enough that where this conversation's now gone really ties in well. But earlier you mentioned that you help the client make choices, but there are ramifications to those choices. The builder, it needs to be able to fit in here in X, Y, Z, but also, as you've gone on to mention there, what I'm getting at is team. Why is it so important to go about and select the right team and put together the right team for a successful project?
I think, as with anything, our industry is reliant on not only the creativity, but the execution. And if you get the right creative team working with the right team that can execute the creativity and understands the creativity, and that's another interesting conversation as well, is that it's not just about handing a set of plans to a builder and saying, build this. It's about getting the input from the builder to say that, nice idea, but we could better things here. Or this is not really a practical solution. And, we deal with egos all the time and different personalities in this industry. And there's a way of bringing people together it's just being respectful, really. I think more than anything. But the importance of getting the right team together ultimately is the final product. So if you don't have a team that resonates, it's not going to work. It's somewhere it's going to fall apart.
Okay.
So that's probably why we like being involved in the whole process and not kind of stepping away once the design has worked, because clients don't want to then be left again in no man's land of not understanding what happens next. And builders don't have the time to take 20 calls from Mrs. Smith who wants to change her tile. They're just not interested.
Yeah.
and understandably so, they need to get the thing built.
Yeah.
Whereas that role is something that we can manage better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If we talk, I know we talked about there's this gap that, again, is maybe my perspective between. I'm looking from maybe a very logical perspective, and it's not always the correct one. A lot of builders will tell you it's incorrect, but that idea of, all right, I need to design, fill it, build it. Is that actually, that's a very good question. What is the correct, or in your perspective, what is the best practice? And where do you start? I know maybe you mentioned it earlier in terms of what's the space.
I think in terms of it is process driven from that point of view. It is about design, about development, and then it's construct. So if we break it down into those three sections, it's probably the most structured way of doing things, because the design informs what is developed, and what is developed turns into the execution of that design. When do the builder and the designer get together to make the execution a reality? I think early on in the development phase, not so much in the concept phase, because concept is dreaming. It's too fluffy for a lot of builders. It's kind of, it's about showing pretty pictures of a bathroom, and it's not a tangible thing. The development of a plan is where it gets real for a builder, and they can comment and make real critical analysis of what we've designed and whether it can work or not. So yeah, those three things: design, develop, construct.
One question I wrote down here, which I'm keen to hear your thoughts on, is around that architect, building designer, and then interior designer. That there, I just wrote here, what does bridging that gap between the architect and interior designer look like in practice?
I think it's still a difficult space, quite honestly, because architects and building designers are licensed. There is a hierarchy. They have a place, and they have studied long and hard to do what it is that they do, and I have huge respect for that. But what we bring to the table is equally as important, because we fill the space. We interpret what they've designed and finish it. So I think it's still, and again, it's about relationships and who you end up collaborating with. But I think that's still a space that needs a lot more respect, because it's still very much a silo thing. Only recently, interior design has finally been recognised as on the ABS as a profession.
Right.
So that's a good start.
Yeah.
Whereas, we weren't recognised anywhere. So I often, and I'm getting better at not doing it, because, when people ask me what I do, initially I would just say to them, my fluff cushions, which is so far from what it is that I actually do. but
that's not respecting yourself.
No, exactly right.
Yeah.
So, I think you've got to be very careful that you don't menialize what it is that we do. So we do so much more than, just finished spaces.
Yeah, we're big on helping our builders just articulate that better, because it's very common, and for a lot of the guys who we attract, and because of what we do and being so story focused, they're often very humble.
Yeah.
And so at a barbecue, or at a potential networking opportunity, what do you do? I'm a builder.
Yeah.
Now you're leaving the interpretation up to that person as to what's their experience of builder.
Yeah.
What have they seen or heard about builders?
Yeah.
What have their friends and family had experience with? It could be quite negative. Whereas if you say something like, well, I help, build incredible spaces for, for amazing families.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What does that
There,
look
there
like?
has
Tell
to
me
be
more.
an element of pride in what it is that we do, and we should embrace that. Yeah.
The one thing you mentioned earlier, which I liked, I think a lot of builders will agree with you on that, and we're trying to encourage more of that. And there's some other big people out there also pushing for it. Getting builders to be involved earlier to help consult through that, essentially overcome that friction point of something gets designed and then it gets, say, priced by a builder and it's sitting well past budget.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something you've heard of and it's seen out there in the industry.
Well, I think this is again, there is a conversation that can be had early when it comes to budgets, and there are a lot of builders that aren't comfortable with having that budget conversation early on, for the reasons that are obvious. We don't know what we're building yet.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're inexperienced, if you're really experienced in this space, you very easily, from the initial information that you get from a client, you're able to very quickly in your head go, well, based on my experience of a similar type of situation, your 500,000 budget is actually an 850 build. Mm-hmm. And I think that conversation needs to be had quite early. And I do it now just with my clients because when they say to me, I don't know what my budget is, and it's a common thing in our space. Yeah. I don't know what my budget is because I don't know what this thing will cost. Right. I throw a number at them. Yeah. And see what the reaction is.
I find that when someone goes, I don't know what my budget is, I find, again, building the thesis around this, is I would like to only invest X, but I would be willing to invest Y if I knew I was going to be getting
That's a very
more.
rational conversation, JP. And unfortunately, most people who are coming to us are looking for a solution from us. And I think before we started the podcast, we were just talking about, what happens when clients call us and the first conversation is, what is it going to cost? Yes. Well, we don't know what it's going to cost until we understand what it is that we're going to design for you to be built. But once you have a basic understanding of, so they say to you, well, we've got 3 bathrooms, a laundry and a kitchen. And then, cheekily, you've got to kind of think about what's the postcode, because that will also inform what the budget is going to be, because there's a certain expectation of that kind of build in this postcode. Yeah. So, yes, there is a bit of a snob value to it, but I think the importance is then to be able to throw out a number to somebody and say, a basic bathroom is going to cost you 30,000, and see what the reaction is. Yeah. Or a basic kitchen is going to cost you between $35,000 and $55,000. Again, gauging the reaction. And then they say, oh, but we actually want to move the kitchen to the other side of the house. Well, now we're having a very different conversation, aren't we? So it is about assessing all of those things early on and having the budget, the uncomfortable money conversation, have it early.
One thing I know, it was good chatting with you on the phone about it prior to this podcast, is often talking to builders, understanding how they handle their sales at the front end. And, they'll talk to someone and someone goes, oh, my budget's this. And the builder goes, no, you can't do anything for that. Phone down. Can't help you. Sorry, your budget's way not even there, not even close. And the opportunity gets stopped there for them. And that person can go elsewhere. But then you talk to them and it's like everyone has a story, maybe not to the magnitude of your color consult through a over a mill project, but everyone has a story of a client that's come to them and said, this is my budget, and they've gone and found more money. Once they realize, oh, by investing more, I'm going to get what I want or more than what I want. I'm not even sure what I'm asking, but yeah, what's your perspective, or what have you seen, or advice, or something like that on that early conversation?
With that particular scenario that you've just kind of brought up, where the conversation closes down before it's even had, based on, I only have this budget. I think a very different approach would be to engage differently. And the way to engage differently, I think, is to say, give them the feedback on what their budget will buy, rather than closing off the conversation.
Yeah, I like that.
So
I agree with that.
Your money that you're saying you have available, in our experience, is probably going to get you this. So what we could do perhaps is prioritize those things for you and look at the other spaces differently. So closing the conversation based on a budget, I think, is I think it's a fool's game, because you're missing out on providing a service that you could probably deliver on. And like you say, inevitably, when you give people solutions, they can see the value, they're going to find the money, or they're going to be realistic about what they can achieve with the money that they have. Yeah. But closing a conversation is just, why do it?
Yeah, it's nice to hear you say that, because obviously the builders, when I see them do it really well, they entertain the conversation, they understand the budget, and then they will design as much as they can of what the client wants to that budget.
So there's two conversations there.
Okay.
And I understand where it can fall apart quite quickly. Okay. Because there is a money conversation, but there's also a design expectation. So the design expectation more often than not, exceeds the money. From a client.
I think that's almost a human.
What they want versus what the money is. Yes. So what do? You say to them, I'm not designing what you want because you don't have the money for what you want. Or do you design what they want and then say to them, right, now this is the reality, and then pull it back? Because I think the other way around is too time consuming. What if we add this? What if we add this? What if we add this?
So adding is more time consuming than
way more. So give a solution, and then pull it back. Okay. Instead of your import a travertine tile, we can find a travertine tile that looks the part. No one cares that it's got a different label. So there's solutions in this conversation. Yeah. But I think you design. I always talk about design the Taj Mahal. It's okay.
Remove the marble.
And then remove the marble.
Yeah. We can make it out of sand. This is another thought of mine. Keen to hear your thoughts on this. So of these homes that I've done in the past, talk me through what the vibe, style-wise, fixtures, what caliber we're sitting at. That one. Okay, great. I'll go away and design you a house. Show me where we're building this. This is a design construct guy. With that finish, and then it's a matter of often reducing excess or reducing floor size so that we can meet your budget with the fixtures and the feeling that when they walk in, it's going to feel like what they saw they liked, as opposed to, this is, again, my opinion, well, how much size do we have? You want 4 bedrooms, you want this, you want that. Okay, let me design that. Awesome. Here's a beautiful 300, 400, 500 square meter house. Okay, now go away and choose what you want to fill it. Now we are so far over budget.
Yeah. You can achieve a brief by answering the need.
Break that down for me.
So that comes to all of those. If we go back to the why questions. So why does it need to be 300 square meters of a house?
Because the town planning says I can cover that much size on my land.
Yeah. So I think those are the why questions.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of jump in. So there's a good example of going to display homes.
Yes.
Display homes are a very topical thing because people walk in there and they buy that dream.
Yes.
And I've been in the situation where I've been kind of privy to the conversation when people are walking through the home and going to a consultant, what is this home?
The sales consultant in the house, or they go to a third party?
No, the sales consultant there. What is this house going to cost me?
Yes. With these 3 coats of paint on the wall, not the 2 that. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem.
Talk me through where's the problem there?
The problem is that we're going to hook you with a low price and then say to you, well, you want a gold tap, now it's going to cost you $100,000 more.
Okay.
Rather than being absolutely clear up front and saying, well, this here is going to cost you X. Don't do the hook thing because I think it's dishonest in a way and it's disingenuous because you set an expectation that can't be met. So the way around that in this conversation is being absolutely clear. You can still have four bedrooms, 2 bathrooms or 3 bathrooms en suite, but the scale of the project needs to come down and your finishes need to be reevaluated. You can't have your sub-zero fridge because you don't have it in your budget.
Yeah.
So there's an honesty that has to be there all the way through, and I'm comfortable with having those conversations with clients early on. Hence, from my perspective, if you can give people a builder a shopping list, the job's done. He doesn't need to worry about negotiating that because they've made that decision already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When, again, because a large part of our audience are builders, you come from a unique perspective where you're sitting, say, on the couch, sometimes next to a client who has to go and choose a builder. What do you think having that unique position is most attractive to a prospective client for a builder, and how are they, from your perspective, going about choosing? How are they and how should they be choosing?
2 things.
Oh, yes?
2 things. Accessibility and communication.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Are they accessible? And what is their communication style like?
Interesting you mentioned that, because those 2 are not price. They're not making a decision based on price. And we had someone in the chair yesterday who helps a lot of builders with from a business perspective, and they were talking about the speed to lead, as in an inquiry comes in, how fast are you getting back to it? And you may have heard this as well. We often hear it, builders thinking, treat them, treat them mean, keep them keen, or something like that. I'm going to call them back in a day, or I'm going to call them back in 2 days to give us perception that I'm really busy and I'm highly sought after. And it's like, that has the absolute adverse effect. If you can get back to them that quick, it's going to show them.
I think there's
those 2 things.
I think there's a different conversation around that as well, because the instant response one could also be interpreted as desperate. So you've got to be very careful about how that response works.
Yes, I would agree with that. And yes, I would say, get on the call very quickly, but then what's the process that comes after that?
Yeah, what's the follow-up?
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's, again, before we started the podcast, we were having a conversation about, is it a telephone call that comes in, or is it an online inquiry that comes in, and how do you handle those? The telephone inquiry is obviously the easiest one if they get hold of someone. Builders are notoriously busy and won't answer the call because they're on site and doing their thing. So you've got to think differently from a builder's perspective. Where does that call actually go to, and who's answering that call on the other end? And what is that experience? I think there's, that becomes a completely new conversation in this space as well. What is that experience when the person is calling and the person picking up the phone at the end of the... is there a sense that the person is a gatekeeper taking a message, or is the person someone that is going to turn that phone call into a meeting or an appointment? Or
I really like you mentioning that.
What happens there?
That's sometimes, obviously, we help with marketing, but sometimes we see some glaringly big issues in sales. And the guy that we had in the chair yesterday was Russ Stevens from APB, and he was just talking about one of the biggest impacts when it comes to making a business shift is, one, definitely knowing your numbers, two, marketing and marketing, advertising, and the third one being a sales process, but it's got to be documented and repeatable. And that was a glaring thing that he raised. But how many times we help businesses with the marketing side of things, and then you get a closer look at their sales process. And one builder comes to mind with that front of house person refused to see their role as even remotely in some sort of sales capacity. Like, got quite aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm not in sales. I don't do sales. And I was like, but you are front of house.
Yeah.
The call comes through to you.
Yeah.
You're the one calling inquiries back.
Yeah.
Can you please explain to me
that is a sale,
that you are trying to sell them on the meeting?
Yeah.
You are trying to sell them on the next step.
Yeah.
And
so I think, so two things. It's what's the experience of the person on the other end of the phone? How's that call being answered? What does it sound like? Does the person seem approachable just on the phone? All of those things actually matter as that first point of contact. When it comes to online/web inquiries, there are two schools of thought. And again, for me, the content of the inquiry, the information the prospective client is giving you in that inquiry, is going to inform a lot of the decision on how to approach the conversation. And then there's the other side of the inquiries that often come through that there's just absolutely no information on. And those are difficult ones, but you've got to treat them the same way in a way. You can't be selective for the reason that you think, well, that's just going to be a tire kicker or a waste of time. So in terms of process, I think treat them the same. But I think from my perspective, when that inquiry comes through, I don't always get on the phone straight away. I might respond to their inquiry and ask them for more information. Because that will be a
definitely
tell.
Go through a discovery sort of process.
Yeah, I think that'll be a tell as well whether or not they're really invested in actually engaging, or if they're just fishing for information. Both are relevant, and I don't want to menialize one or the other, because people do things differently, oftentimes because they don't know any better. So it's about, I don't know how this all works, I don't know what questions to ask. But if you can go back to these people and give them a framework of questions to answer, it helps. But yeah, that first experience is vital. What does it look like? What does it feel like to the person who's making the inquiry? Does it instill confidence? Does this feel professional? Am I going to continue engaging?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that was quite exciting to discuss with you on the phone is your perspective on the market and opportunity. what opportunity are you seeing, and what excites you most when you see that? When you think of the construction space, especially in the niche where you guys sit and who you service most, what opportunity are you seeing, and what excites you about that?
I think, the reality that we're living in at the moment, there is a cost of living. There is let's call it what it is. It's a crisis. People don't have the expendable income that there was available years ago. And yes, things are settling. But if we think about pre-COVID, before all of those price things changed and the market turned into overnight things were going up 30%, 30 or 40%. The market wasn't ready for it. But I think our industry has a lot to answer for in terms of we didn't do that gradually as we should have over a number of years. And only the catalyst of COVID changed that trajectory, and we had to. And that shocked the market. It created this kind of distrust of the industry. And then people, the amount of times that I've had conversations with people saying, well, we'll wait until the prices come down. The reality check is those prices are never coming down.
No, they're not.
It's never going to happen. So the opportunity I see is in the sub-million market. Okay. I think the interesting thing there is to understand that design is not exclusive to someone who has a lot of money. Certainly not in my practice. When I started this business, and I still have the same philosophy, is that I am accessible to anybody that feels that they need help for design.
Okay.
It's not an exclusive service to, I'm not going to turn away somebody who just wants to design a powder room. You have to be available. So yeah, I think the sub-million market is, and $1 million now is not a lot of money anymore in our space. And I know it sounds horrific to even say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
What you're getting for $1 million now is not a lot when you've got a big wish list. So the sub-million, and then 500 and under.
Okay.
There's another real opportunity of a market there.
Talk me through the opportunity. What, like, let's say from a builder's perspective, what could open their eyes? Because what I like what you're saying is we've got a few clients where in their particular market, they were dealing in that sort of, let's say, I don't know, 800, 1.5 to 2 mil. And those people were maxing out their budget to get a brand new home. Now their budget can't buy them as much. They don't access as much money, and so they're spending sub-mil.
Yeah.
And so helping them sort of shift their marketing a little bit to access that market, the renovation market, rather than, say, new home. And they're finding it more profitable, more rewarding.
They can turn them around quicker as well, which is, that's a real opportunity. So the other opportunity is apartment renovations. One of the most hated spaces for most builders because logistically they're a nightmare to work in.
Yeah.
But that's a real opportunity.
That's something, being on the Gold Coast, I cannot understand, unless I just haven't met them, I cannot understand why there aren't more apartment specialists.
Yeah.
Because if you can dial into that market and you start tapping into body corps and you put I think that's a well of opportunity that is just waiting to be exposed. And if you've got the right mindset, and again, as difficult as they are from a logistic point of view, it's all about relationships, and we're all dealing about egos. So a building manager just needs the ego stroke to make sure that you do the right things with them. The thing about apartment renovations is not much you can do structurally. Yeah,
You got to go make it pretty.
The council approvals, or
you're restricted in terms of where things can go, and
another massive
services
opportunity.
stay there.
But the big opportunity I see there that maybe I'm missing something is once you've done, or you've got all the approvals and you're doing that first apartment, you think of how much opportunity is in that building, and if you can just let's say you were to hire someone part-time even just to nurture relationships in that building. All of, let's say, the older funny daddies, I used to live in an apartment with, there would be an ambulance almost taking away someone who was very ill. It felt like twice a month. It was that age demographic. And more likely they're the ones that have, the capital to do work with. And so if you can just drop, letterbox, knock on doors, introduce yourself, apologize, really want to respect you guys, but this is what we're doing, and then invite them. I can't tell you the level of sticky beak in those apartments is ridiculous, especially with those people who have nothing else to do other than be nosy. Yeah. They want to come see. So if you can then, let's say, tickle that
take
fancy,
them along for the ride.
Take them along. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just an abundance, and you already got Body Corp on side. You've already got the approvals.
So massive opportunity for those who want to tap into that market. And because it is a quicker turnaround, yes, again, I completely respect. They're a nightmare to work with, particularly, access into buildings, and, particularly the older buildings, they didn't think about access. The lifts are small, and there's 17 flights to go up. So I understand that, but, people are willing to pay. There is a premium there.
Yeah.
To pay.
Totally.
But that takes you under the million market, a lot of them, and even into that 500,000 space. You can deliver a beautiful, beautiful end result for 500,000 on a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment easily. Work that you can be truly proud of. Yeah. Transformative stuff, you can do a before and after that will completely wow people. So I think that's the biggest opportunity I see. Yeah, wow. That's exciting. Particularly on the coast. Fantastic. If people have more questions for you and what you do, or want to get in touch, because often when we have guests like you on, then builders want to reach out and chat. Had that happen yesterday. How best can someone get in touch with you? Cool. Just go straight to Earthborne By Design website. Cool. Just go to the website. I'm very active on social media. I share a lot. It shows the kind of work that we do and the work that we've done. Yes, there are a lot of projects that have got a nice award stamps on them, but for me ultimately it's not about that. It's not that recognition. It gives you industry recognition, and it kind of gives you endorsement value. But it's just, get in touch. Let's chat about it. Fantastic. Paul, thank you very much for coming on and sharing all of that. Thank you. And thanks for having me. Looking forward to continuing the conversation off camera as well.